turn in memory the leaves of the first and ever the most popular of my Christmas books, A Christmas Carol in 4 staves. Stave the first, Marley's Ghost. Marley was dead, to begin with. There is no doubt whatsoever about that. The register of his burial was signed by the clergyman, the clerk, the chief mourner. Scrooge signed it. And Scrooge's signature was good for anything upon the London Stock Exchange that he chose to put his hand to. No question of it. Old Marley was as dead as a doornail. Scrooge knew he was dead. How could it be otherwise? He and Marley had been partners for I don't know how many years. But he was a tight-fisted hand of the grindstone, was this Scrooge. A greedy, grasping, clutching, covetous old sinner. Nobody ever stopped him in the street to ask with gladsome look and merry eye, "My dear Scrooge, how are you? When will you come and dine with us?" What did Scrooge care? He loved to live, solitary as an oyster. Once upon a time, of all good days of the year, on Christmas Eve, Scrooge sat busy in his counting house. Outside, the street clocks had just struck 3, and yet it was dark already, with a thick mist hanging over the city. Inside, Scrooge kept the door of his office open, that he might keep his eye on his clerk, Bob Cratchit, who in a small room beyond, so small it was like a little tank, was busy copying letters. Now, the fire in Scrooge's room was small, but the fire in Cratchit's tank was so very, very much smaller that it appeared to be a single coal. Yet the poor fellow could not replenish it because Scrooge kept the coal scuttle, the only coal scuttle in his own room. "A Merry Christmas, Uncle! God bless you!" It was the voice of Scrooge's nephew, Fred. And the first intimation the old curmudgeon had that the young gentleman had entered the premises. "Merry Christmas!" "Bah! Humbug! Christmas a humbug, Uncle? You don't mean that, I'm sure." "If I had my way, every idiot who goes around with 'Merry Christmas' on his lips should be boiled alive with his own pudding. Buried with a stake of holly through his heart, he should. Uncle Nephew, you keep Christmas in your way, and let me keep it in mine." "But you don't let me leave alone then." "What's Christmas to you, sir, but a time for paying debts with no money? All Christmas finds you, sir, is 1 year older and not a penny richer. Tell me, what good has your precious Christmas ever done you?" "Well, Uncle, there are things from which I have derived a benefit which have not put money into my pocket, Christmas amongst them. But I protest, sir, whenever I think of Christmas, I think of it as a loving, caring, giving, good time. And therefore, though it has never put a penny piece into my pocket, I say and will say, God bless it." At this, the clerk in the tank applauded involuntarily. "Another peek out of you, Cratchit. And you'll celebrate Christmas by seeking new employment. You're a mighty powerful speaker, nephew. I wonder you don't go into Parliament." "Now, don't be angry, Uncle. Look, I have come in honor of Christmas
to invite you to come and take the Christmas dinner with me and my wife.
Dine with you?
Yes.
I'll see you in Hades first. But why a good afternoon, sir?
I've never been party to any quarrel, and I'm...
Good afternoon, sir.
I'm sorry to find you so obdurate, but I've made this trial in honor of Christmas, and I will keep my Christmas humour to the last.
Good afternoon.
Therefore, Uncle, a Merry Christmas to you.
Good afternoon.
And a Happy New Year. In letting out young Master Fred, Cratchit the clerk let in a portly gentleman, who now stood before Scrooge, consulting a ledger which he carried beneath his arm.
Scrooge and Marley. Am I the pleasure of addressing Mr. Scrooge, or is it Mr. Marley?
Marley's dead. Point of fact, he died 7 years ago, this very night.
Oh, Mr. Scrooge, then. At this seasonal time of year, Mr. Scrooge, it behoves us in comfortable circumstances to make some small provision for the poor and needy who suffer so much at this time.
Are there no prisons? Are there no workhouses?
Oh, well, plenty of both, sir, I'm afraid.
I do not make merry myself at Christmas, and I certainly can't afford to make idle people merry. I support the prisons and the workhouses with my taxes. They cost enough. The poor and needy must go there.
Oh, but sir, many would rather die than do that.
Oh, would they? Excellent. Let them die, and so decrease the surplus population. Good day to you, sir.
Without another word, the gentleman left. At length, 7 o'clock came round, the hour of closing business. Scrooge acknowledged the fact by descending from his high stool with a growl. At once, his clerk Cratchit stood before him, cap in hand.
Yeah, Cratchit. I suppose you'll be wanting the whole day off to yourself tomorrow.
Yes, please, sir. If it's convenient.
No, it's not convenient. And it's not fair. I reckon you'd consider yourself very hard done by if I was to stop your wages for it.
Well, yes,
But you don't consider me hard done by when I pay you £0.50 for no work.
well, please, Mr. Scrooge, sir, it is only just once every year.
Yeah. A poor excuse for picking a man's pocket every 25th of December. Well, sir, if you must have the whole day to yourself, make sure you're here all the earlier the next day.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Scrooge. I will, sir. Thank you very much. And a Merry Christmas to you.
Yeah.
Scrooge took his usual melancholy dinner in his usual melancholy tavern. And having beguiled the evening with the contents of his banker's book, he repaired to his lodgings. He lived in a gloomy suite of rooms in a house that had formerly belonged to his dead partner, Jacob Marley. It was up a dank and dismal alley. Now, there was nothing remarkable whatsoever about the knocker on the door. Scrooge had observed it night and morning of his tenancy, and yet on this particular evening, the knocker, without going through any intermediate process of change, suddenly became the face of his dead partner, Jacob Marley, staring at him with ghostly spectacles turned up on ghostly forehead, with a strange light playing around him like a bad lobster in a dark cellar. And as he looked at it, it became a knocker again. "Bah! Humbug!" said Scrooge, and slammed the door, which echoed through the empty house. Up the stairs Scrooge went in the darkness. Scrooge liked darkness. Darkness was cheap. But he had sufficient recollection of the strange face to double bolt his door, which was not his usual practice. He then lighted his candle and walked through all of his rooms to ensure that everything was in order. Having satisfied himself that all was indeed well, he took off his coat, put on his nightcap, dressing gown and slippers, and prepared to take his nightly bowl of brew, seated in his chair beside the small fire. But as he flung his head back in the chair, he heard a sound of heavy chains being dragged across the empty wine casks in the cellar 2 stories below. Louder still it grew, coming up onto the floor below. Louder yet more as it advanced inexorably up the stairs. On through the door itself came the apparition. As it did so, the dying embers of the fire leapt up as if to say, "We know him! We know him! It's Marley's ghost!" Jacob Marley to the life, in his usual coat, waistcoat, tights and boots, with a corpse bandage tied around his head and a great chain about his middle to which were attached safes and strong boxes and ledgers, and yet, withal, transparent, so that Scrooge, looking at his belly, could see the 2 buttons at the back of his coat through his stomach. Scrooge had often heard people say that Marley had no bowels, but he had not believed it until now. "How now?" said Scrooge, cold and sarcastic as ever. "What do you want of me?" "Much." "Who are you?" "Ask me who I was." "Who were you then?" "In life I was your partner, Jacob Marley." "I see. You don't believe in me?" "No, I don't." "Why do you doubt your senses?" "Because the least little upset to the stomach makes them cheat. You could be a blot of mustard, a bit of undigested beef, a piece of raw potato, a crumb of cheese. There's more of gravy than of grave about you, whatever you are." The ghost made no answer, but slowly undid the corpse bandage at the top of its head. As it did so, its lower jaw sank down onto its chest. "Mercy! Mercy! Why do you spirits walk abroad, and what do you want of me?" "It is given to every man in this life to walk abroad doing good to his fellow men. And if he fails to do so in this life, then he is condemned to walk through all eternity, viewing human misery that he is now powerless to